Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're checking out Bandai's latest real grade release here. It's the Akatsuki Gundam here with the Oowashi pack. The Shiranui pack is of course going to be available via Premium Bandai if you want to get that as well. But today, for today's video anyway, we're just going to be focused here on the RG release of the Gundam and what we've got included in the box here. And as you can see, it's in this big size box. So we got the really cool gold artwork there on the front. Very shiny, very gold. We're going to see that in the parts as well, of course. So let's go ahead and pop the box and check it out. But before we do that, I guess let's take a moment to just appreciate the artwork here on the outside of the box and see what else we've got here on the sides and everything. But the Gundam looks really, really cool there. I love that this is in a really nice looking plated gold. It's going to be very, very shiny. One that you're probably going to want to use gloves for assembly of this, just so it's not covered with fingerprints, but we'll see how that goes here in just a minute. There on the side, you can see this is number 41 in the line. And then over here on this side, we've got some more information. Everything's going to be in Japanese and in English, which is awesome. So it's got, it looks like a stand there included. And then we can see a bunch of details about the kit right there. The backpack there flying on its own, that can be a separate flyer. And then just a whole bunch about some of the gimmicks and articulation points and everything here with the kit. This being an RG kit, it's made to look really good straight out of the box. So here we can see how that's going to look without any paint or anything else done on that. Just straight out of the box built up. It's going to be looking very nice there. And then here on the other side of the box, we can see how this is going to look in a few different action poses here with the beam rifle, beam sabers, and the backpack and everything on there. Looks really cool. Let's go ahead, open this up and see what we've got inside here. All that gold straight away, and it looks like, I mean, I can tell right away, it looks like we're going to have at least two different shades of gold there for the coloring of the parts. We'll take a closer look at all the runners. Maybe 3 shades of gold, looks like, maybe. Looks like we are going to have a correction here included, an amendment to the instructions, so make sure to pay attention to that. And then our instruction manual here, which is featuring that same close-up of the Gundam's head there, that CG render that we had on the front of the box. On the back side here is going to be our sticker decal guide here. We are only just going to have sticker decals, unfortunately, which on that plated gold, I figure are probably not going to be looking all that good. You're probably going to want to pick up some water slides for this if you can. The color chart is down here at the bottom, which you'll notice does not feature the colors for the gold. Typically on plated kits, I think they normally don't include that color here on the color guide. Not exactly sure the reasoning for that. I could take a guess, but basically just something to keep in mind for those of you guys who do like to pay attention to the color guides there. But here on the inside, you can see we've got our parts list there. There is going to be a couple of X'd out parts, or more than a couple, especially here on the F runner. So I'm not sure what runner that is. We'll take a look here in just a moment. And also the B runner, which is going to be our MS frame runner there. As I've heard that this uses the MS frame from the real grade Strike Gundam, and it looks like we're really only going to be using about half of that for the arms, the hip section, and the legs maybe. So we'll check that out some more in detail once we get the kit all built up and everything. But here on the inside, as is normal for real grade releases, we've got these sections here with some more information. Like this section here is just kind of more about a golden machine secretly bequeathed by a father to his daughter. So there's some images of the kit and then some information there in Japanese and in English, kind of about the history of the suit and Kagali's character. Moving along through the instructions here a little bit, you'll notice that like some of the key points that you need to pay attention to are highlighted in pink. So that makes it very user-friendly here, showing you what you need to watch out for. And then here we've got this section about the weapons. And as we've seen in a lot of recent RG releases, this weapon section here is not always in both Japanese and in English. Sometimes it just doesn't have the space, so it only has Japanese. This one does have Japanese and in English for the section there too, which is really nice. And then a couple more pages in, we've got a third section here about the Oowashi unit there, it looks like. So that section also available in both languages. And once we get to the next couple pages here, just a bit about like how to equip and use all the weaponry and everything, and that's it for the manual. All right, we are going to have our sticker decal sheet here as well, which has some really nice markings up there at the top there in black. The rest of our caution markings here are going to be a mix of black, red, and white, and then we've got our like mirror chrome finish decals here. A lot of these end up going on like the frame, or we've got like our camera stickers here as well. So those look pretty nice. And then getting into the runners here, runner SB9 is going to be our clear pink beam saber effect parts. These are the ones that are kind of like flat rather than being perfectly round in shape. And then we've got a clear action base 7 included in here as well. That should certainly come in handy, so nice to have that included. And then we got runner A1, which is a nice big runner here with some high gloss red over here on the sides, some kind of brownish gray here, a few white parts there across the bottom, and then this light metallic blue color part there for the eyes and head camera. That looks really nice. We do also have a runner A2, which is going to be a copy of most of that runner with the addition of this one black or a couple black parts up there at the top. Runner B is going to be our advanced MS joint runner. So this is the advanced MS joint 3 runner, like I said, from the original RG Strike kit. This is dating back to 2011 for the original release of this runner. We'll see how that holds up here in the kit. And then runner C here is our first runner of plated gold and our first of 3 different colors that we have for the plated golds. This is in the most kind of yellowish color here, and as you can see, it's very shiny. It's going to be almost hard to make out some of the details just because of how reflective and shiny this gold is. I mean, that's how you want it to look. I think like in canon, that's how it should look. So that's nice. Runner D here we have 2 of for some more of that yellowish color plated gold there for a whole bunch of nice plated gold parts. And then the E runner gives us kind of our second and third colors. So here's runner E1, and it's definitely more of an orangish gold here for this runner. Runner E2 and then runner E3 are a little bit different. Runner E3 is the same like E1, but runner E2 here kind of gives us our third color, sort of. It's that same orangish gold color, but this one has a more satin finish rather than that super high gloss plated finish. So it looks like to be like basically like the same kind of color essentially, just with a different finish to it. So that'll be nice for some cool little accents there. Runner F is going to be some more frame parts here in that brownish gray color. And this is the other runner that we're going to have a lot of leftover parts from that are going to end up being unused. This runner is also from the original RG Strike Gundam from 2011. So that's why there's going to be a lot of leftover parts here from this runner. Runners G1 and G2 are in this high gloss black, runner G2 being a copy of this half of the runner there. So those parts look nice. And then lastly, runner H is going to be some more parts in that brownish gray for some inner frame parts, hands parts, weapons, and accessory parts there. You can see like for the shield and beam rifle. So that's it for the runners. Let's go ahead and get this built up and then we'll see how it looks. But okay guys, so here is the kit built up, and you'll notice I'm wearing gloves to handle this kit for obvious reasons, trying not to get fingerprints all over that plated gold. And we're going to go about the review portion of this video a little bit different, just because of the nature of this release. It's a very different kind of kit. There's a lot of questions, a lot of concerns that people have about this one, and so I feel like we kind of need to go about doing the review in a little bit different way. So I want to start off the review just kind of talking about just kind of normal, what you get with the kit, what I like about the kit. We'll take a look at a couple poses as best as I can do, because one of the issues that we're going to talk about is going to be, of course, the stability of the kit. But then for the bulk of the review, I do kind of want to focus on kind of the main issues that I know a lot of you guys are concerned about with this kit. Number one just being the price of it. It is pretty expensive. Number two, the gold plating in particular, and there's going to be some crossover kind of between these points. And then the third point, just the overall stability, the build of the kit. And we'll try to talk about what are some of the things that you can do with this kit, what are some of the things that might work or not work to fix some of these issues, if you're worried about fixing any of these issues, or maybe you won't be at all. But the point of this review and any review that I do here on the channel is always just trying to inform you guys so that you know what you're getting yourself into if this is a kit that you want to go ahead and pull the trigger and buy and get for your own collection. So just trying to make you guys as informed as possible is always my goal here. So let's go ahead and get into the RG Akatsuki here. So here's everything that we've got included here. We've got the main Gundam, and like we saw in the unboxing portion of the video, in typical RG fashion, the armor is made up of multiple tones of color. The non-chrome finish, orange gold here, which you can see a couple of accents of there, like on the vents, for example, down here on the legs, most noticeably right there. That makes for a nice accent and a nice break from all the super shiny chrome. But we do have the two-tone colored chrome gold, like the more orangish and the more yellow colors that when they're right next to each other, you can kind of see the difference, like here on the knee, for example, too. You can see the yellow chrome gold and the orange chrome gold when they're right next to each other. You can kind of see the difference. It's not very noticeable, but But I will say the subtle color difference is one thing that I've always enjoyed about the RG kits. It's very, very subtle in this case, and I think just because it's so shiny and chrome is one of the reasons why it just kind of is going to be harder to notice on this kit. But we'll talk some more about that here in a second. For our hand options, they're just going to be swappable fixed pose hands, which is definitely my preferred way to go. So really happy to see that. We have the set of closed fists right there. Then we have a set of holding hands here for the beam sabers, a single trigger finger hand here for the right side only for the beam rifle, and then a set of outstretched dynamic open hands here, which do look really nice. So we got some good hand options in here for sure. For the beam rifle, it looks nice, pretty simple design, doesn't really have anything too special with it. Interestingly, no clear part or metallic blue part or anything for the camera lens on that, but you do have that white part. Yes, the barrel tip part is from a different runner, and so it is very slightly different in color. If you guys notice, the main body is in a more just kind of brownish gray, and this one does have a little bit different color to it, that one single barrel piece. Really not going to be very noticeable unless you're like really looking for that, so it doesn't really bother me much. And for storage, when not in use, it can actually attach onto the side skirt armor right here. You have these two connection points. One's for the beam sabers, and this one over here on this side is for the beam rifle. So this is just going to slot into there, and it's a decent fit, but I gotta say for the size of that, it looks a bit too large to be attached onto the side skirt there. Not really a huge fan of how that ultimately looks, but it can be attached onto the side skirt. And then yeah, on the other side we can attach our beam sabers. Now the two beam saber handles can attach together here like this with that nice black part for the handles and then gold tips. These can be separated, and it's kind of cool how they're asymmetrical to be able to fit together like that. And so you can use this as a separate beam sabers or as a double-ended beam saber, of course. And we've got those nice different flat beam saber effect parts here for this instead of the kind of typical round ones that we see very often. It's a little bit different look for that overall, which I think looks really quite nice. And then there's something else that you can do with this here too, as you can attach the beam saber into the beam rifle here like so to make it into a beam bayonet, which looks pretty cool. And again, with that black and gold and the beam saber effect out of there, looks really nice. Up next then we have the shield, which is comprised of some white, high gloss black, and then the gold frame around that, which looks really nice here just for the front of the shield. On the back side too, some nice mechanical detail there. It is using the shield connection piece from the B runner, from the Strike inner frame runner there. So that's gonna be attached via a ball joint and then plugs into the back of the elbow. And then you have this handle part here, which is also on a ball joint. It looks like it might be on a track moving up and down, but it's not. It's just a ball joint straight into the back of the part there like so. And then lastly, we have the Oowashi pack and the included base. The included base is definitely nice to have and will certainly help with some of the issues that this kit has in terms of its stability. This base is really quite strong. I don't think you'd be able to, or you might be able to, you might not want to put like a larger 1/100 scale kit on here, but certainly anything 1/44 scale and even some of just kind of the normal to smaller size master grades would fit on this pretty nicely. So this should work very well here for our purposes with this kit. You can use it to just hold up the backpack on its own like you were seeing just a second ago, but the backpack looks nice. A lot of great details on here. And the cannons, of course, have the gimmick that they're on this extendable arm, which will reach around when this is attached onto the backside of the Gundam. This will reach around there like that, and this part will extend out. And then inside there we have this handle which will fold out, and the handle can be rotated to either side for being able to get a good solid grip on that for being able to use the cannons. And there is also a kind of cool like cockpit in here too. You can open this up by popping open that white part right there. There is some molded detail inside, but no like seated pilot figure or anything like that in there. Basically you can just see some like mechanical detail. But to attach this onto the Gundam, this part's just going to pull out and fold back like that, and you can see what our attachment point looks like here. It's just this kind of rectangular peg, and a couple people did ask about the compatibility of this pack with different striker packs. I'm not sure about the other RG striker packs, so I don't know what the connections look like for this. But, at least for like the recently released striker packs that work for the HG and the entry grade, this is not compatible. It's a different type of connection piece for those packs, unfortunately. For attaching the kit onto the action base, there's not any kind of hole up underneath the hips or an adapter piece for that. Fortunately, actually what we're gonna do is just go here to the center of the back skirt. There's this dark gray part which will flip up, and that will expose the hard point right here for being able to attach this onto the base. But so what I want to do for right now is, before we get into like the nitty gritty of talking about some of the issues, is just basically kind of give you guys my overall thoughts on the kit. I'm going to show this to you in a few different poses. Now at the moment I haven't done anything to this, haven't done any modifications or anything, so I'm just trying to show you guys If you want to get the kit and don't want to do anything absolutely at all to it, you just want to get it and put it on your shelf, here's kind of what you might be looking at with this kit. And speaking on the kit in this state, it's definitely going to have some issues in terms of just the stability, especially being able to hold up the limbs in certain elevated poses when it's up on the base, but the inclusion of that base definitely helps a lot. So if you're the kind of person who doesn't like to have to use a base for holding up the kit in certain poses, even for standing poses, then that might be of an issue for you. But if you don't mind using the base, I think the inclusion of the base definitely helps to solve a lot of the stability issues that we have with this kit. And I'm not going to go through all the points of articulation with this kit. Basically just know that it's got fantastic articulation. The issue is mostly just with the stability. It's not an issue of the kit being able to get into a pose, it's the ability to stay in that pose once you get it there. So in terms of the articulation that this kit has, there's not really going to be any hindrances. You have a lot of fantastic articulation built into this one, as you would expect for kind of any real grade. So there's not really any reason for us to go through point by point every single point of articulation that this kit has. Just know that it has really good articulation. And a couple of the other features that the real grade line is known for is just external details. It definitely has a lot of that as well. Internal details as well. I mean, there's a lot of details on this kit. I feel like a pretty standard amount to be in the real grade line. It doesn't have any more or any less than what I think any other typical real grade has. So the details are good. And then we have the decals, the sticker decals. We'll talk a little bit more about those here in just a little bit, but generally the sticker decals with this are pretty much entirely useless. They're not going to look good on there. I wouldn't even bother using them. Maybe use some of like the little chrome ones for some of like the details on the frame. Maybe use the stickers on the eyes, just because with how shiny the rest of the kit is, it's really hard to see. Even though you have that nice kind of metallic blue part for the eyes and the head camera, it's going to be kind of lost. So maybe use the stickers for the eyes. Generally, most of the stickers on the armor are just going to be entirely useless. If you did want to add some markings to this, water slides will look a little bit better, but then add your water slides, and you're probably going to want to add some gloss top coat over the top of that as well, just to kind of help to hide the edges around the water slide decals as well. So that's an option for you, but considering that water slides are not included with this kit, I'm not really going to get too much into that at the moment. But just know that essentially the sticker decals that you have included with the kit are pretty much garbage. You're not really going to be able to use much of anything there from the sticker sheet. But now, while we're still just kind of taking a look at the kit in a few different poses here, we can talk about what is one of the main issues that a lot of people have with this kit, which is the price. The MSRP is 8,000 yen from Bandai, and that's high for a real grade kit, definitely. But obviously the main reason for that high price tag is just going to be the fact that we have a lot of plated runners. Now, basically any kit that is a plated kit, you can just kind of assume that it's going to be twice what the normal price would be if it was not plated. So for example, with this one being 8,000 yen, you can imagine 4,000 yen if this was not plated is a reasonable price for this kit, and that's just kind of the way that it goes for any of Bandai's plated kits. Take a look at a couple of different examples, like you have the HD Hyakushiki Revive. That kit has MSRP of 1,800 yen. Take a look at the HD Delta Gundam, which came out a few years before that. Actually, it's an older kit, but that one has the MSRP of 4,200 yen, so even more than double the price. So you can kind of get what I'm saying. Another example might be the HD Fenix, which the HD Fenix, the plated version of that kit, does have about the same amount of plated parts as this one. So you may be thinking, how come that one's 5,000 yen and this one's 8,000? I think the main reason for that is probably just because the HG Unicorn mold had gotten a lot of use out of it. So Bandai had really gotten a lot of use out of that mold. They could afford to charge a little bit less for that one, even though it did have a lot of plated runners in there. They could afford to sell it for slightly less. Whereas this kit, for example, most of the kit is new. Now, we did see some recycled parts in there from the RG Strike, and we'll talk some more about that. But because of the fact that this is mostly new and not really going to be able to be used for a bunch of different variants like the Unicorn is, they kind of have to get their money's worth out of this one kit. Now then the question becomes, would this have been a better release if it wasn't plated and just been kind of standard like molded gold? It definitely would have been a lot cheaper. In that case, it probably would have been around 4,000 yen for this kit. But then people are going to be complaining that they don't like the look of the molded gold. So at least from Bandai's perspective, it's kind of easy to see that they were kind of between a rock and a hard place. They either go plated gold, which, you know, looks more kind of anime accurate. I think that this looks probably better in terms of how the Gundam is supposed to look, but of course it's going to come with that higher price tag. If they go with the molded gold, people are going to complain that it doesn't look right. The molded gold, you know, people complain about just how that gold plastic looks and they don't like it. And so if you only have those two options, I think that this was probably the better way to go. That said, in a perfect world, what I personally would have really preferred to see was to have this kit come out as the standard release, not plated, but kind of like we saw with the HD Hyakushiki Revive, just come out in molded gold. Some people won't like it, but then you can release a premium Bandai version, which you know they're going to do anyway, like we have with the Shiranui pack, for example. Just release a plated version that comes with the main kit and both backpacks. And so then that way, if people do want to have the plated version, they can just get the P Bandai version. And as an add bonus, not only is it plated, but it also comes with both backpacks. So that, you know, obviously would have been even more expensive because it has the additional backpack in there as well. Probably would have had a price set closer to around 11,000 or 12,000 yen, around $100 to $120. But again, I think if you wanted a gold plated version and you wanted to have the option to have both backpacks in there as a premium Bandai exclusive, it kind of makes sense. And now keep in mind, all the poses that you've just seen the kit in were done without any modifications or reinforcement done to any of the joints or anything at all on the kit. So it is perfectly capable of doing plenty of different poses, and a lot of that is thanks to the stand. I mean, but you have the stand included, so why not use it? And depending on the pose you want to do, you should be fine to do almost any pose. That said, I did have to be extremely gentle with the kit, especially moving the legs around in particular. Let's talk more about the gold. One thing you guys wanted to know about was just the tolerance issues. Now, tolerance is just basically the fit of those parts, and now obviously because the plastic is plated with that gold, that does make the plastic slightly thicker. So sometimes the plating can mess a little bit with the tolerances. Honestly, not really finding that to be much of an issue. Any of like the stability issues that we're going to have with this kit are really going to be more to do with the frame rather than the gold plated parts. The only plated part that's kind of loose that keeps wanting to pop off on me is this ankle armor part right here. But yeah, this is actually very reminiscent of like the knee armor with the real grade Shinanju. It has a very similar issue. It just kind of pops off the frame really easily, and all you really need to do is just kind of either just glue it on there or just put some glue or paint or something, whatever in there just to tighten up that joint a little bit of joint tape or something, and then this would be fine. So the gold doesn't really affect the tolerances of anything. That said, it is definitely affecting the crispness of the detail. Now taking a nice close-up look at the head, which is oftentimes the most kind of like detailed part of the kit, and you can still see there's a lot of detail there, and there's a lot of potential there for this to look like really super cool with all those little details and everything. And like some of the details here, like on the wings, for example, too, some of this molded detail, but all the molded detail all just ends up looking not quite as crisp and sharp as it would if it was just regular plastic, just because of that coating on there. Again, just adds a little bit of thickness to all the details, just makes everything slightly more rounded and not quite as sharp. And as for how the gold just makes the kit look overall, I mean, that's just completely subjective. Some people have been saying that it makes it look like a toy, or that it makes it look like too silly or gaudy or just cheap. Honestly, I don't really feel too much one way or the other. I think that it doesn't necessarily make it look too much like a toy or cheap, or it doesn't like look fantastic. It's not honestly the gold look that I would probably go for had I just been painting the kit on my own. So that's just really going to come down to whatever your opinion is on this. Honestly, the biggest issue that I have with the plated gold is probably just going to be the mold lines on it. And people have talked a lot about this one here on the front of the ankle armor being the most notable one, just because it's like right front and center. And yeah, that's a pretty bad one. Then there's some other noticeable ones here, like one on the forearm right there on the side of the forearm. You can see there's a mold line there, and here on the side of the thigh as well. And if you're wondering if there's any way to get rid of those mold lines, if you want to preserve the plated gold, no, there's no way that you can get rid of those mold lines without just actually sanding the part, and then in that case you're just sanding away the gold. So there's nothing really that you can do about it. Most of the kit is fine. Really, the only one that's honestly really that noticeable is just the one on the front of the ankle armor, and it's really a shame that this ankle armor was molded in a way that this is just one solid piece. It could have been separated into 3 pieces, and that would have just easily solved that issue. So even that is not like a huge issue with this kit. Now, last thing I'll say about the gold is if you wanted to do anything else to this, like using the stickers or decals or panel lining or anything like that, and I already mentioned basically the stickers on here are just going to look awful. And just to demonstrate that for you guys, here I went ahead and just put 3 decals here on the shoulder, which was great because it features a black decal, a red decal, and a white decal, so you can see whatever color the marking is. It kind of doesn't really matter. It's not like on some kits sometimes the lighter or the darker color marking looks better. In this case, it's not going to be so much an issue of what the color of the decal is itself, but just like this, the film of it being a sticker decal, it just looks awful against that plated gold. And even here at a distance, I mean, you can just see that the decals are just going to stick out like a sore thumb. It just looks like stickers stuck all over that gold, and just kind of looks bad. I mean, like if you catch the light, if it's like this sticker is like stuck behind a glare and you can't see anything at all, then it's not noticeable, but otherwise it's just going to be sticking out like a sore thumb and just looking really, really bad. Now let's say if you wanted to panel line the kit. Now on gold, I would think brown probably be the best option for a panel line color. That said, I mean, you could try black, but just to give you guys an example of how panel lining would look on a kit, I'll just kind of demonstrate that here for you guys as well. And even trying to do this, I'm actually running into an issue where just the marker just doesn't really seem to want to be working just because this is so like glossy. So probably would be a better idea to use like the Tamiya accent color on this, but I'm kind of worried about that. Just kind of what that might do to the gold finish with it having so much solvent in it. And then I'm just using some, on the Q-tip here, a little bit of lighter fluid, which is what I would typically use for cleaning up this. And even that's like kind of not really working very well to clean this up. If you look here, I'm just like kind of having a hard time, and it's gonna be hard for you guys to see, I understand. Sorry about that, but I wonder if using an eraser might work just to help better to clean this up, but not really. So pretty much I would just recommend you guys just not even try panel lining this, but I don't know if you've seen anybody or heard anything about anybody having any luck, or if you've tried it yourself, tried using the Tamiya accent color, like the liquid type one in there, if that works well for panel lining this. I'm not sure. I don't really want to try it at the moment, but I would say panel lining, nah. So anyway, let's just move on then to our third and final issue that I want to talk about with this, and that is probably the biggest issue that I would say that most people are going to have with this kit, and that's just fingerprints. No, obviously, I mean, like I would recommend getting some latex gloves for handling the kit, or cloth gloves or something like that. Its fingerprints are going to be an issue for sure. But actually, it's just the build quality. And now the fact that this is using basically kind of like half of the frame of the RG Strike, it's essentially just like the arms from like the bicep down and the legs, the entirety of the leg frame, not the foot though. So from the ankle up to the hip. The center section of the hip frame is also old, but then there's a new part at like the top of the hip frame, and that's where all the skirting armor is attached to, and that's actually pretty bad too, because it's like just ball and socket joints there for all the skirting armor, so it does tend to pop off kind of easily. I haven't been noticing it to be too much of an issue, but definitely when you're trying to pose it, that skirting armor can pop off kind of easily on there, the front and back skirts. So just something to be a little bit weary of. Like this, I just barely kind of moved it up and just kind of popped off the ball joint there. But that is a new part, and it's a new frame on the inside of the torso, and that's all good and well. And honestly, haven't had any issues at all with the arms. The arms seem fine. So really kind of the only issue that I'm having with what's reused from the RG Strike frame is really just kind of in the hips, because the knees are solid enough and not having any issues with the stability of the knees. It's really kind of only just in the hip section. And it's a combination of two things. While I'm taking this off there, I'll also just mention that this is also a price factor. Now, if we would have had a completely new inner frame for this, the kit would have cost a little bit more. So if one of your concerns about this is the cost, this was definitely a tactic of Bandai's in a way to keep the cost down a little bit, was reusing some of the frame parts, obviously just because it's also, I mean, they could, and it honestly kind of makes sense too, just considering like the lineage of the Gundam to just reuse parts of the frame. I mean, it makes sense honestly, and yeah, a completely new frame would have been nice, but again, just remember that would have made the kit cost a little bit more. So the main issue is going to be twofold here at the top. Number one, this peg here that actually connects the leg onto the hip frame is too short. So it's very short, and this should have been a new part that has like a locking mechanism or something on it, where like you have to put it in a certain way and then turn it, rotate it, and then it's locked into place. That would have solved the issue of the leg just coming off of the kit entirely. And if we disassemble this a little bit, we can see the other main culprit here for the frame is just going to be that ball joint there at the top. That ball joint is just too loose. It's just not strong enough to be able to maintain the weight of the leg. And so the leg is going to be somewhat heavy, at least too heavy for this little ball and socket joint right there. This is definitely a part of the old frame that should not have been reused for this kit. It's the main culprit. It's the number one thing that you're going to struggle with this kit. And so there's a number of ways to fix that. Ultimately, you can use like joint tape, like what's available from Gun Primer. You can use super glue. I've heard people using just tissue paper. You just stick some tissue paper in there and you can just kind of rip it off or cut it off away from there. And this is going to be mostly hidden. So even if you have like a little bit of super glue fogging or a little bit of tissue or tape or whatever you end up using for this, nail polish, I maybe wouldn't use, but some kind of paint or something maybe just on there. There's a lot of different products you could use to just basically make that joint a little bit tighter. But again, as you've seen with just the poses that I was showing off earlier, it's not a huge issue. It is definitely going to be the biggest weak point in this kit, and it's definitely going to make it difficult for you to have the kit standing, especially with the backpack on. When I had the backpack on the kit and I was just trying to get it to just be in like just a plain standing pose, it just wasn't able to do it because, as you've seen probably in other different videos, the kit just wants to separate and it just kind of does the splits and or just falls over. And so yeah, that's definitely a thing that happens, and it's definitely something that I experienced as well. And just to demonstrate that for you guys here, I try to put the rail guns to the front to try to balance out the weight a little bit. And you can see I can kind of get it to stay there. And it's also just due to this surface, this cutting mat being a little bit more rubbery. That's definitely helping out. But if we go to my rotating base here, which is just like a very slippery, hard plastic top here, you'll see it's just not gonna be, I can't let go of the kit without it just doing that. So yeah, it's definitely an issue for sure. There's a number of ways that you can ultimately fix this. Like I said, basically you just need to tighten that ball joint there at the top of the hip, and that's pretty much it. So otherwise, guys, just to wrap up, I mean, that's like really going to be the main biggest issue, like I said, that you're going to struggle with. There's a lot of other smaller issues with the gold plating, with the price, with a lot of other things here with this, but I mean, most everything really kind of just comes down to small issues. You're not able to use the sticker decals that are included. I mean, I guess you could, but I mean, I think we can all pretty much unanimously agree that those are not going to be useful whatsoever. Everything else, I mean, the rifle, the shield connections work fine. I don't have any problems with the hands being able to hold the weapons. And as you can see, I mean, it's able to do different poses without really too much issue. So it's really, I mean, there's like a couple of issues that you are going to have with this kit. Overall, I mean, it's really not that bad, but it's definitely one that I would not recommend to everybody. It's definitely one that I would say, you know, definitely consider the pros and cons before buying this one. And if you're looking at this thinking like, hey, it doesn't look too bad, I think it looks pretty cool, I'm willing to pay that price for it, then by all means, definitely check it out. I'm honestly pretty happy with the kit despite the flaws. That said, probably what would be next for me personally, I would be interested in stripping that gold, and if that's something that you would like to see, I will do a video on that later. But if you're interested in stripping off the gold, really all it comes down to is just giving those gold parts a bath in some like industrial strength degreaser like Purple Power or something like that. Leave them in there overnight, take them out, and that should work pretty well for just getting rid of the gold plating. But like I said, I'll talk some more about that in a different video later. But at the end of the day, for me, this is coming out to be a very similar case like what we saw with the Real Grade Zeta and the Real Grade Shinanju, two kits that also pretty much the majority of people unanimously agreed were not great kits. And I agree there's definitely issues with, you know, all of these three examples that we're talking about. But in my case, I'm finding them to be, you know, relatively minor flaws that you can definitely work around. Certainly nothing that would cause me to say, stay away from this kit no matter what. You know, if you like the way the kit looks, definitely check it out. And if you guys have any other further questions or anything else that you would like to see, you know, examined a bit more closely with this kit, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts on the kit. What do you think? I know this has been a lengthy review, but hopefully it's been pretty thorough for you guys to go over some of the issues that you've been concerned about with this, if you had issues that you were concerned about with it. But as always, guys, if you want to check out the kit or anything else from the RG line or from Bandai or any other Gundam kits, you can check the link in the video description to USA Gundam Store. And as always, guys, thank you so much for all of your support. Leaving a like if you enjoyed the video, making sure that you're subscribed. I really appreciate it. Guys, thank you so much. Until next time, hope y'all are having a great day. See y'all later. Bye, guys.